Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. I'm your host, Rudolph, joined as always by AJ Haefele. Today, we are breaking down, I think what AJ and I believe to be the best draft class of the 2010s.
Yeah.
I think it'd be hard to argue against that. There are some pretty amazing draft classes in the aughts that it might be tough to compete with, but one of the best so far of the 2000s.
Yeah, right now 2015 is in competition with 2003 for best modern draft.
So it's definitely up there. And the order can get pretty interesting, as you'll see as we dive into this draft a little bit. But
yeah, I would say it's one of the ones where a lot of the guys that were taken in the top 10 have pretty good arguments to stay in the top 10.
Yeah, I think there are good arguments to stay in the top 10, but outside of the top 2, I don't think many stay in their exact draft position.
Yeah, there's going to be some minor shuffling that has to take place, definitely.
So we'll dive into that. We'll also probably dive into some of the busts of the class a little bit later as well. But yeah, I get people asking me all the time about doing redrafts, so I feel a little bit weird about it, like totally down to do it, but it's hard you have to remember that when the draft actually happened, there was a lot less information to go off of. You didn't have a box score of 350 NHL games in some cases to pick guys off of. So,
and it's hard to go back and try and remember what team needs were.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Back at the time of the draft, especially because like what were Colorado's needs in 2015?
Everything.
Right. It's basically the only thing they didn't need was a franchise center.
Yep.
They still had Matt Duchene, they had Ryan O'Reilly, and they had Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah.
They didn't need a center. That was the one thing they walked in and they were like,
we're good on that spot.
We'd love to have McDavid or Eichel, but otherwise we don't need any of these guys.
Yep. So we'll do our best to calculate for team needs and all of that, but take it with a grain of salt, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on Philadelphia's prospect pool back in 2015.
For sure. Definitely not the maximum expert there. We can start off. I mean, look, 1 and 2 aren't changing really quick. Edmonton is still taking Connor McDavid, and Buffalo is still taking Jack Eichel.
I don't even think there's a question about this. There have been some guys who have been great. Sebastian Aho, Mikko Rantanen, Mitch Marner, just taking it fourth. Those guys have all been awesome in their careers. There are some franchise defensemen. None of those guys have been better than Jack Eichel. I don't think you're taking Thomas Chabot, Ivan Provorov, or Zach Werenski over Jack Eichel.
I wouldn't tell you that much.
So I know there's been an element of like, Buffalo has underachieved with Eichel as their top guy, but
that's not Eichel's fault.
Teams, and you look at how Eichel's played, and is there maybe a leadership problem? Is there maybe an attitude issue? Maybe. Like we don't really know those things, right?
Sure.
But when it comes to just raw production,
the on-ice product from Eichel is elite, 100%.
Yeah, he's getting the job done.
Hard to argue against that. So that's not really going to change anything. Like many drafts, this draft really begins at pick number 3 with Arizona. They originally drafted Dylan Strome, which obviously didn't work out for them in any way, shape, or form. They really struggled to even get him into the NHL, let alone get him to produce there.
And keep in mind, when they drafted him, he was coming off of a 129-point season in the OHL.
Yeah, he was a monster next to McDavid.
That was the thing, is that they were on the same team.
Yep.
And that's super duper unfair in juniors. Like,
Yep.
obviously Dylan Strome has not panned out, but when this draft happened, it was widely viewed as two surefire franchise centers and one guy that everybody felt very good about.
Yep.
In Dylan Strome.
And I mean, after the fact, since going to Chicago, Strome has been a solid NHL player.
Yeah. Much more two-ish.
Right. Not a first line center, really. Definitely not worth the third overall pick, but
yeah,
a lot more than what Arizona got out of him.
In some draft, like you put him in, what is it, 2012 draft class, he'd be one of the best players.
In one of the weaker ones for sure.
In 2015 though,
not.
We will revisit Strome later in the first round, I think.
Yeah. I don't think he's particularly close to the top 10.
No.
Put it that way. So that leaves Arizona open to change up the flow. If we're going strictly off production, the pick would be Mitch Marner.
The reason that I struggle with it being Marner is that he's a wing.
That's exactly the same conclusion I came to here. Is you have the third overall pick. Are you looking for a franchise player that you can have drive your offense? And just like we saw McDavid and Eichel go, what Arizona originally tried to do with Strome, and it obviously didn't work out. So would you consider defense here? I really wasn't considering any of the defensemen with 3.
I think so.
Yeah, you would.
I think I would consider it.
Sure.
But knowing that, look, there's really, it's just Sebastian Aho Sebastian Aho
Sure.
and Matt Barzal are the guys that I'm having this conversation about.
I think I'm taking Marner over Barzal every time.
I think so too. So
Aho is a conversation. Yeah.
It comes down to which one do you want? Is it Aho or Marner?
I lean Marner, but
I think he's more dynamic, but what's Marner gonna do in the desert
without the talent around him
much? Without the top flight center. Now Toronto didn't have Austin Matthews and they didn't have JT when they took Mitch Marner.
Yep.
They had William Nylander, and so it was like, okay, well, they're gonna build around the and if I remember correctly, Mitch Marner played quite a bit of center at London, but moved to the Wall. I think
that sounds right, but I'm not gonna know for sure from juniors 6 years ago.
Clearly, I have tons of confidence in that, but regardless, he's a wing in the NHL now, and this is where it's hindsight, right?
100%. In a redraft, it's hindsight.
I still think it's Marner. I just think he's too good, but it hurts to leave Aho sitting there.
It does. So Arizona goes with Marner, and I mean that basically reshapes what they do for the rest of this decade, right? They probably don't look at guys like Clayton Keller down the line, and
well, maybe they look at Keller.
You think?
Yeah, I would say, because the idea you put Keller. I mean, they took Keller even after they took Strome.
That's true.
So the idea is to put them together,
I guess.
And let's see what they do together. My only concern there would probably just be size at that point. You're kind of tiny, rolling both Marner and Keller. But I think that would be a good foundation for them, man. I think it's a good start.
I definitely would take Marner over Strome, put it that way.
Yeah.
4th overall pick is Toronto, who originally took Marner, so their pick is now open as well.
Knowing the juggernaut on offense that they built,
yeah.
What happens if they take Aho here or Barzell.
I mean, if they take Aho or Barzell, you don't end up with Matthews and JT, right?
I don't think you end up with JT. I
Yeah.
think you end up with Matthews still. Because
Sure.
you're gonna take Matthews. If you end up with the first pick in 2016, you're taking Matthews over everybody else in that class.
Right. That's
easily.
fine. But they probably don't trade for JT if they take Aho there.
Yeah, they don't throw the free agent money at him.
If you want to go full hindsight here and realize that Toronto's defense has been a mess,
yeah,
do you consider someone like a Chabot?
Well, this is where it's like, okay, how much of the future do you consider?
Yeah.
Because if we're making this pick and we know that they're getting Matthews the next year, we know that they're signing JT in free agency, and that Nylander turns into a very, very good player. Boy,
you sure don't need a center.
Ivan Provorov sure looks good there, right?
Yeah.
Like Ivan Provorov, Zach Werenski, Thomas Chabot, any one of those three. I don't know how to rank those three. They're three very different guys that do a lot of different things, and they've been in way different situations. Werenski's had Seth Jones' entire career.
Yep.
Chabot's been hung out to dry on some terrible Sens teams his whole career. Provorov has been on competitive Flyers teams his whole career. So they've lived three very, very different lives as three different players. So it's hard to, even in a redraft, to separate those three, other than to say Chabot is the one that's going to jump up quite a bit, because both Provorov and Werenski were top 10 guys anyway.
Sure. I mean,
Toronto, at the time they had Kadri, and that was kind of it, right? They had Kadri and Nylander.
Still needed the centers at that point.
I would say probably Aho.
I'm comfortable with Aho. The ripple effect there is certainly unknowable. Like you said, they probably, maybe Aho makes them not finish last or whatever. But if they finish last, they still get Matthews, and then they do something else in free agency. Who knows what they go out and get?
Right.
But
maybe with Aho's slower track, they probably still finish last. They get Matthews, cool. Yep. And then, maybe they go get JT anyway, and they just say screw it.
Just have the deepest center depth ever. Sure.
Yeah.
Kadri 4C confirmed.
Yeah, because it's not like there's a defenseman at the top of 2016 that we would say
that's
they
true.
would have to consider.
So, not sure, but that's kind of the point of the redraft. Is it recreates the entire NHL in a lot of ways. So
yeah, well, and especially 2015 had so much legitimate talent. That's all that's dispersed throughout the entire league, that it reshapes the NHL, and now we're reshaping it.
Yep. It's why we chose 2015, right? Because of the impact it has had.
Yeah. And it's recent enough. It had a huge impact on the Avs.
Yep. We'll get there.
It changed a ton. So Carolina
at 5 originally took Noah Hannafin, another guy who's going to drop in a redraft for sure.
At the time, I was surprised they took the defenseman.
Yeah.
They were already building a really good defense internally.
Sure.
I was surprised they took the defenseman because their forward talent has just been so iffy. And with Matt Barzal sitting here, Matt Barzal or Chabot or one of the three defensemen.
I mean, knowing they ended up taking the guy who just went at 4 in the second round originally, who has become a key contributor for them at center.
Yeah, that's their 1C.
Yeah. It feels
over John job.
It feels really hard for them to pass up on Barzal at center.
Yeah.
Given that.
Yeah. It's also tough because Hannafin's the guy that they used to trade for Dougie.
True.
So, this redraft hurts them because they got the big steal in Aho in the second round.
Yep. They get worse in a redraft for sure. Do they get a center with this pick, or do they get a proper defenseman?
Well, I think they have to take Barzal.
I'm with you. I think Barzal's the pick here at 5.
Yeah.
But it probably is a conversation of if the Avs take Werenski instead of Hanifin, they don't have to trade Werenski away, right? That's just a defenseman for them.
Yeah.
But as you said, a little surprising for them to take D at that point anyway. So
yeah, because they already had, Slavin and Pesci were already there. They were already breaking in. They also had already
a good Justin Falk at that time.
Yeah, Justin Falk was still there. They would take Jake Bean the next year to further confuse everybody.
Yeah, right. Maybe they should stop drafting D.
Yeah. And this impacts 2017 too, because now they took Netchus then, and
Yep.
With Matt Barzal,
turtles all the way down there a little bit.
Yeah, well, who knows how different Hurricanes history is here.
Yeah, could do a big change. So that's the top 5 in a redraft. We have McDavid, Eichel, Marner, Aho, Barzal.
Yeah,
in that order. We do have to take our first period break here and let you guys know about Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. I got a Breck Lager right here that I'm sipping on. Ordered a 12-pack from Drizzly just the other night. If you want to get delivery alcohol here in Colorado, you can get all hooked up with that. Breck Brew has dozens of flavors, something for everybody to try. Or, of course, you can always go to your local liquor store as well and pick it up there. Looks like our YouTube comments are not coming in, or maybe y'all are just being quiet today. I don't know. But we have no comments.
This will be the quietest show we've ever had.
Yeah, so I'm assuming y'all might be commenting, and our comments are broken. So apologies if we don't see your comments on screen.
We're not ignoring you guys. This is a thing that happens sometimes.
Yeah, so sorry about that. But we also have Green Mountain Dental Group, the best family dentist here in the Denver metro area, just 15 minutes from downtown in Lakewood. You can head on over there, and when you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, you will get a free Sonicare toothbrush from them. So why not jump on it? Free stuff is always great. Highly recommend. We've had multiple people from DNVR go over there, and they say it's an excellent place to go. Some of the best dental experiences that they've ever had. So give them a try today. They'll even get you all hooked up, send you cards to remind you of when your events are or when to reschedule. So second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, redrafting 2015. We're through the top 5. We move into number 6, and this is probably the part of the draft where everything starts getting crazy. You've taken out pretty much every high-end center in the draft class now. You could make some cases for some guys a little bit further down, but 4 top centers off the board. At 6, you have New Jersey picking, who originally went with Pavel Zacha. Not going to live up to the 6th overall pick with what we know today.
Yeah, I think they take one of the defensemen here. Pick one.
Pick a winner.
Yeah, let's go with Shabbat.
Sure, Shabbat works for me.
Yeah, they take Thomas Shabbat. Boom.
Easy slam dunk pick there. Don't think twice about it.
Definitely. Zacha just has not worked out, and you fast forward today, they still need a little bit of everything.
Yep. It's New Jersey's kind of been in limbo, yeah.
So Heischer and Hughes take like a big crazy step forward.
Knowing what we know now that they're getting Heischer and Hughes on the forward side makes a defenseman pick pretty easy.
part of that reason that they get those guys though is because Zacha doesn't work out.
Yep, true.
If Zacha blossoms into the high impact player that was thought,
yeah, sure.
Well, and he had an interesting draft year because he was hurt.
Yep.
And he wasn't very good in the first half of the season, and was really good later on. And actually, I think I have that backwards. And all I know is that one half he was really good, the other half he wasn't, and he was hurt. He only played like 30 games in the OHL. And that's
sample size, yeah.
Yeah, like you're really taking a big chance on just raw talent at that point. It's a really big leap of faith. You know, Zacha was a guy that the Avs were really big fans of. And would have been he probably would have been an Av had he gotten that far, because they really liked him. At his size, with his ability, like especially his shot.
Yep.
He was super intriguing. And then it's weird because he's not a bad NHL player. He's kind of gone the route of a guy like Sam Bennett and Tyson Jost, where he's a solid depth player.
Exactly.
But he gets viewed harshly because of where he was drafted.
Yep.
But he's actually turned into like a pretty good defensive center for New Jersey.
3C type of guy.
Kind of randomly. That's because it's not when he gets drafted, you don't ever think that, right?
That's
you're not
a
having
top
that
6 lock for that guy, you're assuming, yeah.
Yeah, even if you can't hack it at center, then you just move him to the wing. You put him next to one of those centers, and he blossoms as a high-end goal scorer for you. Easy. This is easy. And then, for some reason, he turns into their 3C.
Yep.
It's just been interesting for Zacha. But New Jersey definitely walking out of this with Shabbat thrilled.
Yeah, I think they'd be super happy with that. 7 and 8, let's talk about these picks together. Philadelphia and Columbus both take defensemen, both worked out. Ivan Provorov and Zach Werenski.
I think they just do it again.
Yeah, that's where I was at too. Especially with Chabot. If New Jersey takes Chabot, they stick to their guns. They take their defenseman that they want.
And to be clear, if either Werenski or Provorov went to New Jersey, the next 2 picks are still defensemen.
There's still Chabot and Provorov, yeah, right.
If it's Werenski, whatever, it's Chabot and Provorov, or it's Chabot and Werenski. Whichever combination in this redraft, those guys are all going defense again.
Yep. So pretty uncomplicated process there for 6, 7, 8. Take your D, get the D run, and then once the D are off the board, you start to have the conversations about the rest of the top 10. San Jose at 9 took Timo Meier. This is a legit NHL player. He's a guy who went in our fantasy draft over the weekend, but should he be in the top 10 of this draft? I don't think so. No,
he shouldn't be. And this is where this sucks for Colorado. Yep. Because I don't see Kyle Connor had a great year. But Kyle Connor is nowhere near the all-around offensive talent that Mikko Rantanen is.
Yep.
I don't think that Rantanen is getting past San Jose here. I mean, you throw Mikko. I didn't think Mikko Rantanen was getting past San Jose on draft day.
Right before when it actually happened, it was shocking. But
yeah, because the guys that I was looking at for Colorado with that pick, they met 3 separate times. They had 3 interviews with Matt Barzal.
Yep.
They loved him. They loved Kyle Connor, and I know that they were high on Timo Meier. Those were the 3 guys that I was kind of looking at for Colorado. Because I thought Mikko Rantanen would be gone. And the other guy that was kind of in that conversation somewhere, but I never got the sense from the Av that it was really they were very, very high on him, was Lawson Krause.
Well, who will get being high on that, yeah.
But I think San Jose takes Mikko, and
yeah,
he goes out there with the Sharks. To be honest, you drop Mikko Rantanen, second year Mikko Rantanen onto that Sharks roster, and you wonder what they could have done.
Yeah, that you're talking about maybe actually doing the thing for the Sharks at that point.
Timo Meier's been a nice player for them, and he absolutely goes somewhere in this top 20, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Of this draft. He's a good NHL player, and he's getting better. The thing was that Mikko got so good so fast.
Yeah, so in their first full season was both 17-18. And Timo Meier put up 36 points in 81 games.
It's respectable for a guy that was, 20 years old?
I guess Rantanen's first full season was a terrible year, but I wiped that from my memory.
He still had 20 goals that year, too.
Yeah, he had 20 goals that year. And then in Timo's first full season, he was a point per game player. So,
yeah.
A little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, like you look at Timo Meier. Okay, so Timo Meier right now, 24 years old, and he's been on a consistent upward trajectory until San Jose completely bottomed out.
Yep.
Like, got drafted, went back to the queue for his D+1, was extremely comically productive there. Was great for them, and then the next year goes into pro hockey and is very good in the AHL. Big time adjustments for him in the NHL. And then after that, you know, that 36-point season you're talking about, he scored 20 goals. It was like Rantanen's rookie year. A 20-goal rookie year, under 40 points, did what he did best, which was shoot the puck. But then after that, he took the big step forward with the 66-point season, 30 goals. And then, again, a slight step back last year as the Sharks totally fell apart. They had a ton of injuries on offense. And, of course, the season got canceled. So everybody's numbers are a little down.
Yeah.
Rantanen, though, it was just a different level, man.
I mean, you put Rantanen next to Joe Thornton, and he's a 40-goal scorer. Like,
oh, I mean, him next to Joe Thornton or Logan Couture.
Yeah, either one. It's filth. And
they get Mikko Rantanen, and I wonder if they trade for Evander Kane.
Yeah, they probably.
I know.
Honestly, yeah.
Kane plays on the left side, and Rantanen plays on the right side. So maybe you get them
both and just
put them together.
Nasty.
But yeah, because with Mikko's playmaking ability next to the goal scoring with Kane, that could have been incredible.
Yeah,
that's got to be a what if that gives Sharks fans nightmares.
To miss on Mikko for sure.
Yeah.
So that brings us to Colorado. Pick number 10. Obviously, Mikko off the board now. You had mentioned that a lot of the players they talked to off the board as well.
Yeah, the one that they really liked that was still there was Kyle Connor,
which pretty, at least arguably, the best player left on the board, based on hindsight.
It's so again they didn't need a center.
Sure.
So I think this conversation that we're having here is Meier, Connor, and Besser.
No Konechny?
I think he's a weird fit for Colorado.
Sure.
Also, I'm still just sort of on Konechny. I kind of think what he did last year is the best that they're gonna get out of him.
It. Yeah, there's nothing more.
Not that 61 points in 66 games is like bad.
Right, sure. But
I think the Avs were after something specific. I think they really wanted a goal scorer.
I mean, I think it's an easy slam dunk for Connor than over Besser, but
that's what both of those guys, that's what they do.
Yeah, for sure.
And as luck would have it, both of those guys would star in college next to future Avs.
True.
Connor with Comfer and Besser with Jost.
Yep. Boy, that would have been interesting.
So, you think Connor's the? I think I agree with you. I think Connor's the guy. Connor.
Yeah. I mean, knowing what we know now and the breakout that he's had in Winnipeg.
Kyle Connor has 3 full seasons in the NHL, and he has 3 30-goal years.
Yeah, exactly. Besser hasn't even hit 30 goals, mostly because of injury. But
Jake Paul actually said he'd fight Evander Kane.
Dude, I'd pay to watch that fight.
I'm not a big pay-per-view fan, but I'm in. I am super in to watch Evander Kane feed Jake Paul.
Yeah.
I am in. Yeah. So I think Connor's the guy here. And then what does that change for the Avs?
Does it really change that much? I mean, I guess you're not getting the 55 assist seasons out of him that you got out of Mikko, but
what does he look like next to Nathan MacKinnon?
Yeah, how do you build that?
Because the other conversation that we haven't really touched on is that McKinnon's big explosion happened next to Mikko.
Yeah, it did.
And it wasn't like MacKinnon had weak line mates up to that point. Colorado's top six had only been a strength since MacKinnon was drafted.
Yep.
At no point was it ever considered weak until the 48-point season. And even then, his line mates, he was still playing with Landeskog every night. So Mikko was a huge part of that breakout. How does that change?
I do want to get into this conversation, but we do have to take our second period break with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 rated sportsbook app out there, with a bunch of amazing offers for you. Of course, they're still doing the $1,000 sign-up bonus when you use code DNVR. You can jump in and get your deposit matched up to bonus of up to $1,000. Excuse me. So jump on that, and you also have a bunch of awesome bets coming for this weekend. The Gonzaga-Baylor game, where AJ's taking Gonzaga. Bet on either team. If you pick the winner, you will get $100. Because why not throw in an extra $100? It's a great deal for you. You can bet on all sorts of stuff. I have no doubt if Evander Kane fights Jake Paul, you can bet on that as well. So
bet so hard on Evander Kane.
Put it all on Kane in that one. Yep,
he's gonna have to use his money phone to call the medical peoples to come pick up Jake Paul from the mat.
This guy has actually fought quite a bit in his career. This isn't a basketball player stepping into the ring here.
This isn't a 5'8" basketball player
right.
Who's been long retired. This is in his prime Evander Kane, who. I'm pretty sure that there's a very, very famous and popular clip
of him
one punching Matt Cook and further scrambling poor Matt Cook's brain. Like that dude, not to celebrate brain injuries, just to say that Evander Kane can throw him.
Yep.
And up until that point, Nate Robinson's most aggressive, most of his fighting experience came as a member of the Knicks when Carmelo punched a Knick and then backpedaled 100 yards down the floor, and Nate Robinson got tough with it and was like, I'll fight you all. In which now we know they all should have taken him up on it.
Should have fought him.
But you couldn't fight it because you're picking on the little guy on the floor. You're not a bad dude for doing that. This is the same reason why everybody was like, yeah, okay. Jake Paul knocks that dude out, and we're all like, all right.
Go fight
knocked out the little guy who would say yes. Like, woo. You're going to really say yes to Evander Kane? Tell you what, he knocks out Evander Kane, he gets my respect.
All right. There you go. That's all it takes. Brad, if you want to buy a reverse retro jersey, first you need to age about 3 years. But then you can go on over to DraftKings Sportsbook and win yourself enough to buy. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR to sign up to get that $1 bet to earn $100 on that college basketball game and get your $1,000 sign-up bonus as well. Limited time only, so jump on it only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus. Deposit bonus requires 25x playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. All right, so Nathan MacKinnon next to Mikko Rantanen. Can Kyle Connor be the same type of facilitator for a breakout there?
It'd be different because again, Mikko's playmaking is helps McKinnon's goal scoring.
Yep.
The big difference here might have been MacKinnon doesn't score 40 goals and instead he scores 30 goals, but he adds 15 assists, right? 10 assists.
Instead of seeing an incredible uptick in shot volume that moves into the assist category, perhaps.
Yeah, because if there's one thing, I've always said that Mikko's best attribute is his shot, but he has great playmaking ability and instincts.
Yep.
He's an unbelievable passer.
Yep.
But if he was more aggressive, if he had, say, the Burakovsky mentality of when in doubt, shoot.
Yep.
He could be a 50-goal guy.
Someone of his size, if he played a bit more like a power forward, sure.
Yeah. And one of the things that we were really seeing that we didn't see last year, but we saw 2 years ago when we started calling him Baby Yager, was he was doing that. He started putting his butt
a little bit. Yep.
He started using that big old butt and throwing it into dudes' chests and denying them space and just physically mauling people in the dirty areas of the ice.
Yep.
And if he gets back to that next year, I think last year the injury probably made him a little timid.
Yeah, I agree.
And if he gets back to understanding that he's a big bad MFer, he'll be just fine.
Yeah, can we talk about how everyone all of last season was like, man, Rantanen really feels off this season, and he had 41 points with 19 goals in 42 games.
Yeah, well, and then we were nonstop on him in the playoffs
too. Yeah,
and he had 21 points in 15 games in the postseason, and we were on him every single game.
Yep.
And if you were on Avs Twitter, you would have thought he was the worst player on the Avs.
Yep, straight up.
And like there were moments where he looked the worst player, and then there were moments where he was bad. And
but then he would find his way to 2 points, and it's like,
right,
what do you do?
Right, like how do you? It was the strangest valuation because I did not envy Evan having to do great because it was like, look, your eyes are telling you that this guy's really struggling, and he's a point per game throughout the whole postseason. It wasn't like he had a 6-point night that carried a week worth of scoreless games. The guy just rolled. It didn't make any sense. It was the dumbest thing, but we should probably just do a Rantanen hype show at some point.
A whole Rantanen is actually a beast show.
Yeah.
All right. We'll put that one down on the schedule somewhere.
I'm just curious. I'm looking it up now.
Okay.
Rantanen had a point. Jesus.
Too many.
Starting in game 3 of the Arizona series, he scored in every single game.
Wow. And
hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those were multi-point games.
Man.
You would never have known that.
No. You would have no idea based on the reaction of the people watching.
I mean, based on people, based on social media, based on us. It wasn't like we were like the lone voice who was like, Mikko's great. Like we kept looking at the points and we talked about it every game.
Every game was like, Mikko looked terrible, but he got 2 points, so I don't know.
And there was like the one game where he scores like the nonsense like fourth goal in the
right.
You know, a game they were losing by 3 where you were like, But that was the thing though, is that like you're looking at guys like Tyson Jost, and what is it that everybody always says? I don't care how well he plays, he has to produce.
Yep.
But then with Mikko, he's producing, and it's like, but he's not playing well. He could play so much better. And it's like, okay, well, if he plays so much better, what's the goal of that? For him to produce more? He's already scoring literally every game.
Yeah, true. I mean, has there ever been a run like that of 2 teammates? Because McKinnon had like the insane point streak as well in the playoffs.
Yeah. So for the record, game 2 against Arizona is the only playoff game Rantanen did not score.
And what, McKinnon was only game 7 against Dallas, I think?
Yeah.
So 2 of your top 3 forwards scored in all but a single playoff game.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Man. That's crazy.
Them not getting beyond the second round.
Yeah, travesty. All right, so back to the topic of today's show.
Kyle Connor goes to the Avs.
Yeah, Kyle Connor to the Avs. Have we covered that enough? I think. I mean, yeah. The bread gets made a little bit differently, but the Avs still get a top line winger. So,
yeah, and then Florida does not take Lawson Krause. This is where it gets kind of strange.
Florida definitely not taking Lawson Krause. That's for sure.
So is this? I mean, Florida. I know that there's still Meyer, and that there's still Besser and Konechny, but does Florida consider Hanifin here? Not a top pairing guy, but they've been so bad on defense.
Yeah, I mean,
And Lawson Krause didn't do shit to help them on offense.
was Ekblad's brain scrambled by then?
No.
So they would lean on Ekblad at the time, but boy, I mean, that's the only D you can even consider, though.
Yeah. And then the other question that I have is, at what point do we start considering Samsonov here?
That's a conversation, probably, actually, for Florida too. Because I mean, you're right.
Samsonov, they don't sign Bobrovsky, right?
Right, and you look at their forward core today, and you go, "Yeah, they're fine there."
Yeah, they've been fine there.
Yeah,
Part of the reason they've been fine there is because they keep drafting freaking forwards in the first round.
true.
And this was one of the they did it here and it didn't work.
And this was a miss. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could say they don't need to do it again.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the reasons that I think it should be Samsonov or Hanifin.
I think I'd lean Samsonov, honestly.
I'm good with that.
All right. Samsonov going to Florida. Yeah, that'd be definitely free up $10.5 million for them. They can go sign Taylor Hall if they want.
Yeah. They could have played around in the Petrangelo sweepstakes.
True. That's true. They could have gone that way to shore up their D also. 12 is Dallas, who took Denis Gurianov.
Gurianov coming into his own, but again, between Besser and Konechny,
better players on the board for sure.
I think Besser is probably more their guy.
Especially Gurianov being a goal scorer for them too. It makes like pretty sensible to swap them out.
Yeah, and this was in the middle of Dallas drafting all of the bigger guys that they could find.
True.
And Konechny's 5'10".
Doesn't fit that mold, does it?
Yeah. So it's not, it's not like Brock Besser is massive, but at 6'1", 210, he's pretty solidly built. So I think between those two guys, Besser going to Dallas.
I like Besser there. Yeah, fits their injury.
And then this is the disaster. Boston, 3 picks in a row. In reality, could have completely reshaped their whole franchise.
Right. They ended up originally with Zaboral, DeBrusk, Sinizhin, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Zach Sinizhin.
Yeah. And of those so far, only DeBrusk is a solid NHL player.
So I think they probably take DeBrusk again with one of those 3.
Sure. We don't have to do the order. It's 13, 14, 15. They get DeBrusk. Konechny's there.
Yeah, I think they get Konechny, and then I think they take Hanifin.
Sure, to get the D as well.
Yeah.
And that's Boston probably wins a cup over the last 2 years with those picks, I think. Because they made a conference finals, and then I guess they lost in the second round this year, but
would we also consider a guy like Vince Dunn over Hanifin?
I don't think so. Not for Boston, because they had Krug up through this year too.
Okay, Hanifin, same. It's the same conversation. I think it's just that
it is. Vince
Dunn's just been a slower burn, and Hanifin was more of an immediate. Everybody knew him. He was going to be a quick path.
I think the other side with Hanifin going to Boston is he gets a little bit more sheltering because Boston has Chara, because Boston has Krug. He goes to Carolina, and they're like, "We need you to be one of our best players right away."
In this draft class, well, he got some sheltering with Slavin and Pesci.
I guess that's true.
And then in this draft class, Boston also picked up Brandon Carlo.
Yeah, so there you go. The defense of the future for them there.
Yeah. So assuming they do that again. But I'm just curious because it seems like Dunn gets kind of forgotten. Eric Chernak is also in this conversation. Travis Dermott.
And Chernak is interesting. Dermott, not as much.
I would agree. I would agree on that hierarchy. I would go Dunn and then Chernak and then Dermott.
Yeah.
Nudavara somewhere in here.
Yeah. He'd go in the first round probably anyway.
Yeah. getting into the second half of the first round, I think those D would all start to go because they're all top 4 guys of some caliber.
You always see the D rise a little bit.
Ignoring phrasing, Islanders. Matt Barzal. And at this point, I mean, they took Anthony Beauvillier later in the first round. They might just take him here instead.
Just move it up, yeah.
Yeah, because we're talking those defensemen and then Beauvillier, Roslovic, Colin White, Eriksson Ek are the next guys in this conversation.
Yeah, and at that point, you're targeting Beauvillier to play next to JT probably.
How about where do we value Mackenzie Blackwood?
See, that's so tough for me because who is he like on a different team? Who is he where somewhere he gets more opportunity in the NHL?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm rarely a proponent of drafting goalies in the first round anyway, but we did it with Samsonov already, so I don't know the goalie needs well enough in the league, to be honest.
Well, and I'll tell you, Samsonov, we drafted 11th based on 26 games played.
Sure. Super small.
Mackenzie Blackwood has 70 games.
I understand what we've done, but
I understand what we've done. So dramatic.
Made a continuous, and I don't know what Logan Paul says. Sorry. Tried the meme and couldn't get there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about him except I just want to see him get his face punched in.
There you go. I mean, Logan Paul's his brother who did get his face punched in, I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember. I remember I watched the video of one of them walking around during during the George Floyd riots.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was Jake, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of them was like walking around the mall while his friends were like
looting and stuff. Yeah.
Like, why would you film this? But I don't know. I guess when you're a moron, you just do whatever.
Yep. DNVR versus the Paul brothers coming soon.
It's not going to go well for us in publicity.
No, I think we would take that L probably.
Like, do you guys want to play 2-on-2 in Halo? Like, we could do that.
We'll take you on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
We'll play that game. Rudo and I in Halo 2. Yeah, I'll do that.
Anyway, I did want to touch on a couple of the other busts in this class. We talked about Zaboral and Senyshyn to Boston, but throughout the rest of the first round, you also had the bad Svechnikov brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty later on, Noah Juleson hasn't quite lived up to it either.
Yeah, Gabriel Carlson to Columbus.
Yeah.
Of the Matt Duchene trade talks fame has definitely not worked out. Nick Merkley to Arizona is actually a sad story. Got drafted and then had a devastating injury.
Yep.
And when you're a smaller guy, you need all of your explosiveness, and when you have a lower body injury that takes that away.
When it's gone, it's gone. Yeah.
That guy just can't succeed. It's kind of it's very Joey Hishin-esque in that an injury sapped that guy of a chance to perform in pro hockey the way that there were hopes to. You know, now Nick Merkley, part of the Taylor Hall trade.
Yep, and this
really good AHL player, but.
Continuing on down, because this draft was extremely deep. Colorado had picks 39 and 40 in this draft. They took AJ Greer and Nick Milosh. They got 37 NHL games out of that.
Yeah.
Neither are with the team anymore.
To note here, they had the 31st pick from
then
the
they
Ryan
traded
O'Reilly
it back.
deal.
Yeah.
They traded back with San Jose so that because 40th was their pick. They traded 31 for 39 and a second round pick in 2016.
That ended up being Morrison, I believe.
Correct. And those picks were their own picks that they had given up already.
For Brad Stewart prior. Yep.
So the big what if there is, what if they just sit tight at 31 and take Sebastian Aho?
I mean, That would be wild. Aho's a center again, so they probably wouldn't have done it. But they could have. And obviously franchise changing. But honestly, San Jose went with Jeremy Waugh there, who has yet to play an NHL game. So it's not like...
Again, that was I think he had 2 major knee injuries after getting drafted, where it was like...
problematic.
Wasn't so much a bad pick as it was everything that happened after that just went sideways.
But you're looking... I'm looking up and down this, and they could have had Aho. They also could have had Brandon Carlo at 31.
Yeah. And remember Brandon Carlo, a local kid, somebody that they should have at least known pretty well.
Yep. And then even if they do the trade, they end up with 39 and 40. If they got those picks right, they could have had Eric Chernak and Mackenzie Blackwood.
Yeah. I mean, they could have had Rupe Hintz and Jordan Greenway.
Yep.
Rasmus Anderson, Vince Dunn.
All legit good NHLers.
Yeah. Anthony Cirelli went in the 3rd round of this draft.
There are some crazy late round picks in this draft. The 4th round had Dennis Mulligan, who has almost 200 games. 5th round has Connor Garland and Dominic Simone.
Also, Troy Terry and Adam Gaudette.
Yep.
Adam Gaudette's a legit guy in Vancouver, and Troy Terry is still trying to prove it with Anaheim.
I mean, 28 points in 81 games. That's an NHLer.
Yeah. It's just what roles are going to play, whatever. You know, all those. The 6th round, John Marino just had a great rookie year. Same with Vladislav Gavrikov.
Yep.
Andrew Mangiapane has been. He was a 19-year-old in that draft.
Yep.
He was one of the guys that I really liked. Mangiapane and a Swiss kid that Chicago just signed as a free agent.
Yeah, what's his name?
Pius Suter.
Yep.
Those were 2 guys that I really liked as second-time eligibles, and Mangiapane has turned into a valuable player for Calgary. Mason Appleton has turned into a good depth guy for Winnipeg. And then the 7th round, Matt Roy just had a really underrated, great rookie year for LA. Marcus Nudavara has 244 games played already.
Nudavara is the guy we're talking about going in the end of the 1st round in a redraft, and was taken in the 7th.
Sami Niku has been banging on the Jets NHL door for a while now. This draft was incredible. You could probably fill up almost 2 full rounds with legit NHL players.
Yep. It's
deep. not to get super like we don't want to spend the rest of the offseason redrafting, but when you look at 2016, you have a hard time filling the top 10.
Yeah. You look at 2016 and there's a real conversation about Jost still being at 10.
Yep. Tyson Jost probably not in the 1st round in 2015.
Yep.
And there's a very serious conversation about him probably still being the 10th pick in 2016, but we should just do it now. I mean, not at this moment.
I know what you mean, but just do the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Because now I'm curious. I'm like, there are some really legit guys. Like, obviously, Matthews, Laine, and Dubois probably all stay in that order.
Sure.
Could Chuck, Keller, Sergachev, McAvoy, Chikrin, those guys all top 10.
But you get to 8, 9, and all of a sudden.
Yeah. Sam Girard.
Yeah.
Is a guy. Adam Fox is a guy that you start looking at, Victor Mete.
Eesh. Yeah.
Yes,
the fall off
Jesper
comes quick.
Bratt, like big time conversation about where Jost goes.
Certainly still in the 1st round either way.
Oh my gosh. I don't think you can make an argument that he drops out of the top 15.
Yeah.
He might slip out of the top 10, but I don't think he gets out of the top 15.
So is that more of a conversation of how weak 2016 is or how strong 2015 is?
It's both.
Yeah.
And then you look at, because if you even move to the next year and you take a look at 2017, I still think it's too early to tell for a lot of these guys.
Sure.
You still have a bunch of these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have like a guy like Owen Tippett who has 7 NHL games played but has been, just had an excellent
lights out
pro debut in the AHL.
Yep.
Where you're like, this guy is probably ready for something bigger. There are guys like that. Gabriel Velarde just got healthy.
And killed it in his handful of NHL games.
Right. Was really productive. And then on the other side, you have, Elias Anderson's on his second franchise. What's going to happen with that guy?
Yep.
Cody Glass, for some reason, just hasn't taken over a center job yet. What's going to happen with that guy? Robert Thomas is a stud. Josh Norris only has 3 NHL games played. But if you look at his AHL stat line, you're like, what the hell is this? He had the same kind of stat line in his first year in pro hockey that Mikko did.
Yep. So, certainly curious how draft classes do shape up like that.
Yeah, and it's important to note because you always hear, for a top 10 pick. Well, the top 10s aren't all the same. I mean, top 5s aren't even all the same.
Yep.
Because if you look at the top 5s from both 2015, 2016, 2017, they're very, very, very different.
I mean, 2015's top 5 has the greatest player of this generation in it, so.
Yeah, and 2015 is so good that its top 5 doesn't have a true bust.
Yep.
The first true bust that you get so far is 13 in 2015. All the other guys are legit NHLers to some level.
Meanwhile,
that isn't true. 2016, Olli Juolevi has 5 games played, and Jesse Puljujärvi's been in Finland for a year and a half.
He's back, but yep.
These Logan Brown, Mike McLeod, Jake Bean,
it's rough.
Logan Stanley, Kiefer Bellows, German Rupsov, Julian Gauthier, Riley Tufte. Like, that first round is Henrik Borgstrom.
It's riddled with landmines.
Yeah, tons of these guys. Even Tage Thompson, Brett Howden are like just desperate to prove that they belong.
Yep. It's crazy. It really is. You have to work with the draft class you're given sometimes, and if the draft class is weak, the caliber of player you're going to get just isn't going to be the same if you don't have basically picks 1 or 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, it's true. And that, to be honest, you look at these, and I know everybody dismisses Colorado's success drafting in the first round, and like, well, they can only hit their first rounders. But like, those are the ones you have to hit.
Yeah.
Must. And Tyson Jost is their biggest miss since Connor Bleakley. That's their biggest miss in 6 years, and he's still an NHL player. Just goes to show you it's hard to do. It's even in the back half of the top 10, it's hard to do.
Yep. So
the Avs got super lucky that they had the 10th pick in an all-time great draft in 2015, because even doing this redraft, you start to look at the drop-off. It's full of high-end guys, but once you got past Boston, basically,
it goes quick. Yep.
You're struggling, you're getting Dennis Gurianov types, like solid players, but not foundational pieces.
All right. On that note, I think it's time for us to get out of here with Chevalier Mortgage. Both Mike and Virginia are not only diehard Broncos fans, but they've supported DNVR for a long time as members as well. They're a husband and wife team with over 15 years of financial services experience. Be sure to head on over to DNVRmortgage.com and give them a look, as they're giving away a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice when you do. But more importantly, get set up with a free consultation to discuss all your options. It's DNVRmortgage.com, or you can call Virginia directly at 303-257-6578. Since your home is likely to be one of your largest assets and your mortgage your largest debt, they believe it's vital to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. This includes considering your short-term and long-term planning goals, investments, and tax situation. Mike and Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for you. So again, give them a call or visit them at dnvrmortgage.com. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631. All righty. On that note, that wraps up the redraft of 2015, I guess. We did the top 15 picks and kind of discussed some of the other guys. So maybe we'll do the 2016 one tomorrow or sometime later if we feel like it, but we'll have to see. We also have the expansion draft show coming up on Thursday, I believe. So you have that to look forward to. I know everyone always asks about the expansion draft. It's coming. We're going to do it. So get prepared.
Yeah. I have a couple of written articles on it as well coming up. Looking back at Vegas and then I head to Seattle and kind of where the Avs sit.
Yep. Prepping for a February start to the NHL, more likely it's starting to look like. So,
yeah. Alan Walsh with some pretty interesting tweets this during our show today.
Yeah. I haven't checked.
Basically saying the NHL's floating the idea of invoking force majeure to cancel the season.
I see.
If the players won't agree.
Interesting.
Which is pretty... I'm not sure how it would work to invoke force majeure when you negotiated the CBA during a pandemic and then turn around and say that same pandemic is why
now the problem. Yeah.
Is the act of God needed to invoke that particular clause. I'm not sure how that would work legally. Me not being
not qualified to have that conversation for sure.
But I definitely think it's an interesting stance to try to take.
One of his tweets is, even if the NHL lawyers are advising owners they have a winning case here, I suggest they go back to law school. So doesn't sound like a great look. Wow. But anyway, on that note, if there is any confirmed news, you can always catch it here on the DNVR Avs podcast. We're 5 days a week. So whatever happens, we'll be here, hockey or not, talking to you guys. I sure hope there's hockey because I don't know how many topics we have left. But yeah, that's going to do it for today. Y'all know the drill. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.